Your inexplicable inner turmoil is the secret language of your God self awakening. You stare blankly at your reflection, feeling an inexplicable emptiness despite checking every box. You lie awake at 3 a.m., cold dread clutching your chest, replaying strange coincidences, questioning reality, wondering if you're losing your mind because everything feels off. You've convinced yourself this is just anxiety. In 1933, I felt a suffocating financial emptiness, a persistent gnawing disquiet. I longed for Barbados but was penniless. By interpreting this inner turmoil as divine instruction, I enacted a specific mental act. Within 90 days, a first-class ticket to Barbados materialized, paid for by family who had refused. This was not luck, it was law. In this session, I will reveal the exact method I used to translate that inner disquiet into deliberate creation. You will learn to interpret those strange coincidences and the shimmer of reality not as madness, but as precise navigational signals. Master this forbidden language, and your 3 a.m. dread will transform into profound peace and command over your reality within 30 days. Fail to grasp this, and you will forever misinterpret your deepest calling. Now, let me show you exactly how this works. I'm going to break down the 8 immutable principles that make conscious creation an unstoppable force in your life. Each one builds upon the last, revealing a deeper layer of truth about who you are and how your reality is formed. By the end of our time together, you will understand why your past attempts at change may have faltered, and precisely what you must do differently, starting tonight, to command your destiny. Pay attention closely, because the very first principle alone will fundamentally shift your understanding of reality forever and open the door to a power you never knew you possessed. The universe operates not by what you see, but by what you assume. This is the first, the most fundamental, and the most critical truth I discovered and have taught for decades. What you assume to be true, though it may be entirely contrary to your present senses, will harden into fact. It is not about positive thinking. It is about knowing something to be true in your innermost being. Your assumption is the blueprint, the divine command, the unshakable premise from which your world unfolds. Story-proof stack, let me tell you of my own experience, one that taught me this law with an undeniable clarity. In 1933, I had a fervent desire to visit my family in Barbados. I was in New York, a struggling dancer, with no money, no job prospects, and certainly no means to afford passage on a ship. My teacher, Abdullah, a truly magnificent man, asked me, "When are you going to Barbados?" I explained my situation, detailing every logical reason why it was impossible. He simply looked at me, his eyes piercing, and said, "Neville, you are in Barbados." He commanded me to sleep as if I were in Barbados, to feel the warmth, smell the air, hear the sounds of the island. He told me to enter that state as if it were already a present fact, not a future hope. Night after night, I followed his instruction. Lying in my small New York apartment, I closed my eyes and assumed I was in my brother Cecil's home in Barbados. I felt the familiar bed, the mosquito net, the sound of the tree frogs outside. I smelled the specific scent of the tropical air. I could hear the waves of the Caribbean Sea. I persisted in this assumption, despite my physical eyes showing me the grimy walls of my New York room. One evening, about 6 weeks into this practice, a peculiar thought came to me. I no longer wanted to go to Barbados. I was in Barbados. The desire had dissolved into a present reality. The hunger was gone. A few weeks later, I was called by a producer offering me a dance job for the Christmas season in New York. I declined, stating my desire to go to Barbados. The producer, confused, said I had a contract. I insisted I must go. Eventually, they paid me for the duration of the contract, and I immediately used the money to book passage on a ship to Barbados, arriving precisely when I had assumed I would. The dates aligned perfectly, as if orchestrated by an unseen hand. I had not earned the money, it was given to me. I had not sought the job, it was offered. The means materialized out of thin air, all because I had assumed the end. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious mind does not discriminate. It does not argue with your assumptions. It accepts them as commands. When you assume a state, you are impressing upon this infinite, creative power a new reality. Think of your subconscious as fertile ground and your assumption as the seed. Once planted, it must grow. It cannot help but grow. Every thought, every feeling, every image held with conviction, whether consciously or unconsciously, becomes a directive to this vast intelligence within you. It then mobilizes all necessary conditions, circumstances, and individuals in your external world to reflect the truth of your inner assumption. It is a mechanical operation, devoid of judgment. It simply receives and expresses. This is why most men are unaware of their power. They are constantly, though unconsciously, assuming states of limitation, lack, and struggle, and their world faithfully reflects these unexamined assumptions. Contrast trap: most men spend their lives reacting to what they perceive as reality. They believe their circumstances dictate their state of being. They say, "I am poor because I have no money," or "I am sick because my body is failing." They are constantly trying to change the outside without realizing the outside is merely a reflection of the inside. This is trying to prune the branches without ever touching the root. But the man who truly understands the law of assumption knows that his external world is a shadow of his internal state. He does not react to his circumstances. He creates his circumstances by consciously choosing the state he wishes to occupy. He assumes wealth, health, and love, regardless of what his present senses report. He says, "I am wealthy," and lives from that feeling, allowing the external world to catch up. He knows that his assumption is not a wish, but a decree. This is the difference between a victim of life and a conscious creator of destiny. Listen to me carefully. If your entire world is truly a reflection of your assumptions, then what hidden assumptions are you holding about your current challenges? You're about to discover how to identify and transform them, unlocking an entirely new realm of possibility. Your imagination is not some frivolous fantasy factory. It is the very essence of God, the creative power itself. It is the only reality. The outer world, the so-called solid world of facts and figures, is but a shadow, a projection of the inner world of your imagination. William Blake, that great mystic poet, understood this profoundly when he declared, "Imagination is not a state, it is the human existence itself. What you imagine, you bring into being. What you fail to imagine remains unborn." This is the divine canvas upon which you paint your destiny. Story proof stack. I often referenced William Blake, not just for his poetry, but for his profound understanding of this truth. He saw the world as a direct emanation of the imaginative faculty. He believed that what seemed like external limitations were merely the limits of one's own imagination. He lived his life embodying this principle. Despite living in relative poverty for much of his life, facing public misunderstanding and criticism for his unconventional views, he never faltered in his imaginative work. He imagined himself a prophet, a seer, a divine artist, and that is precisely how he is remembered today. His work, which was largely unappreciated in his own time, now stands as a testament to the enduring power of his imagination. He did not let the lack of external validation or mar it. This is the natural, inevitable way to bring anything into your experience. Story proof stack. One of the most profound examples of living in the end, beyond my own Barbados story, involved a young artist I knew. She desperately desired to have her art displayed in a prestigious gallery in New York City, a dream that seemed almost impossibly distant given her humble circumstances and lack of connections. She often spoke of it with longing, but her current reality was a small, dusty studio and struggling sales. I taught her to live in the end. I told her to stop talking about wanting her art in the gallery and instead to be the artist whose work was already there. I instructed her to imagine herself walking into that specific gallery, seeing her own paintings hanging on the walls, observing the patrons admiring her work, and feeling the immense pride and satisfaction of that achievement. Crucially, I told her to carry that feeling throughout her day. How would an artist whose work was in such a gallery conduct herself? She would paint with confidence, speak about her art with authority, and carry herself with a certain assuredness. She embraced this completely. Every day, she would begin by entering that imaginative scene, feeling the reality of it, Then she would go about her day as if it were already true. She started dressing with a bit more intention, speaking more confidently about her work, and most importantly, she painted with a renewed sense of purpose and joy, as if she were already fulfilling her destiny. She stopped looking for opportunities, but rather became the opportunity. Within a few months, a curator from that very gallery, who happened to be visiting a mutual acquaintance's studio, saw some of her new work. He was captivated. He mentioned that they had an unexpected opening for a new artist and asked if she would be interested in submitting her portfolio. The entire process unfolded with an almost uncanny ease. Her art was accepted, and she had her first solo exhibition in that very gallery, precisely as she had lived it in her imagination. She told me later, "Neville, it didn't feel like a surprise. It felt like walking into a room I already knew. I had already lived there." This demonstrates the profound truth of living in the end. The external reality simply crystallizes around your internal state. Subconscious programming. When you live in the end, you are not engaging in mere mental gymnastics. You are literally shifting your vibratory frequency to align with the desired reality. Your subconscious mind, perceiving you're consistent in a state of fulfillment, begins to organize and rearrange all elements of your external world to match this internal blueprint. It is a process of internal congruence. Your thoughts, your actions, your reactions, everything begins to flow from the assumption that your desire is already a fact. This effortless alignment is what causes circumstances, people, and events to fall into place, seemingly by magic, but truly by law. You are literally stepping into the version of reality where your desire is already manifest, and the old reality simply dissolves. Contrast trap. Most men constantly live in the beginning, in the state of wanting, of lacking, of striving. They say, "I want success," or "I need money," or "I wish I had that relationship." Their entire mental and emotional landscape is dominated by the absence of their desire. They are constantly looking for the end rather than from the end. This perpetuates a cycle of lack and unfulfillment as the universe faithfully mirrors their inner state of wanting. They are always on the outside looking in, always chasing a future that never arrives because their present state is one of not having. But the man who understands living in the end steps immediately into the feeling of the wish fulfilled. He begins his day from the premise that his desire is already a fact. He walks, talks, and thinks as if he already possesses what he seeks. He makes decisions from the perspective of the fulfilled state. He knows that the future is simply the present extended, and by occupying the desired end now, he collapses the time and effort required for its manifestation. He does not struggle to achieve, he simply is. This is the ultimate secret to effortless creation, for when you live in the end, the means to that end are revealed and flow naturally towards you. This addresses the belief challenge. It takes too much effort time to manifest big things. It takes the simple, disciplined act of living from the end, which requires no external effort. This final declaration is a powerful encapsulation of all you've learned, rooting the truth of your creative power within you. Speak it with absolute authority and conviction, knowing you are proclaiming your divine birthright. Say this with me from the depths of your being: I am the conscious creator of my reality. I live in the end, always. My every desire is already fulfilled within me. I am God in action. Let these words reverberate through every cell of your body. Make this your unwavering truth. Implementation ritual. Now, you have the complete framework, the 8 immutable principles that govern all creation. Here's exactly how to apply this tonight to begin your journey of consistent and conscious creation of desired realities. 1. Identify your dominant desire. Choose one single, compelling desire that, if fulfilled, would bring you profound joy and a sense of completeness. Make it specific, clear, and emotionally resonant. 2. Define the end state. Ask yourself, what would be the undeniable evidence that this desire is fulfilled? How would I feel if this were already true? What specific, brief scene would imply its fulfillment? E.g., seeing a bank balance, hearing a congratulatory phone call, feeling a specific ring on your finger. 3. Enter the state akin to sleep. SATS. Tonight, As you lie in bed, bring yourself into that drowsy, languid state just before true sleep. Let your body relax completely. 4. Imagine from the end. In this receptive state, vividly bring forth the specific scene you defined in step 2. Do not observe it, participate in it. See through your own eyes, hear with your own ears, touch with your own hands. Most importantly, feel the naturalness, the joy, the relief of the wish fulfilled. Feel it as if it is happening to you right now. 5. Persist and repeat. Dwell in this feeling and scene, replaying it gently until you naturally drift off to sleep, carrying the feeling of fulfillment into your subconscious. If you awaken in the night, return to it. Repeat this ritual every single night, and if possible, every morning upon waking, until your outer world conforms. 6. Live from the end during the day. Throughout your waking hours, consciously choose to operate from the assumption that your desire is already a fact. If doubt or negativity creeps in, immediately return your attention to the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Ask, how would I feel if this were true now? And adopt that feeling. This is how you apply the consistent and conscious creation of desired realities I promised you. Timeline promise. By faithfully applying these principles, especially the SATS ritual and persistence in the assumption, within 30 days, you will begin to notice undeniable shifts in your reality. You will see doors opening, circumstances aligning, and people appearing that directly reflect your inner state. The profound shift in your entire life perspective and experience will be evident, bringing a sense of power and peace you may have only dreamed of. Do not waver. Belief challenges resolved. Let's revisit those limiting beliefs you may have carried. You thought, I'm just not lucky, but now you understand that you are the operant power, the source of all fortune. There is no luck, only assumed states. You believed, my past defines my future, but now you know the power of revision. That why. Our past is a malleable narrative you can reshape, freeing you to create any future you desire. You felt, manifestation is only for certain people, but now you have learned that the law of assumption and the operant power are universal, available to every single consciousness, for you are that consciousness. You thought it takes too much effort time to manifest big things, but now you realize that it takes conscious assumption, deep feeling in SATS, and unwavering persistence in the end, which is an inner discipline, not an external struggle. You thought, my circumstances are too difficult to change, but now you know that your circumstances are merely shadows of your imagination. Imagination, being the true reality, can dissolve any difficulty and create any solution. Open loops closed all those mysteries we spoke of earlier, now fully revealed. Why do some desires manifest quickly while others seem to linger for years? You now understand that it is due to the depth of the impression upon the subconscious and the persistence in maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Some desires face less internal resistance or are impressed with greater conviction from the outset. Is it truly possible to change past events or just our perception of them? With the principle of revision, you now know it's not just perception. You literally alter the subjective record, which then changes the objective consequences of that past event in your present and future. Your past is alive in your imagination. How do I know if my assumption is truly impressed upon the subconscious or if I'm just wishing? The key lies in the feeling. When your assumption is truly impressed, you will feel a sense of relief, a quiet certainty, a peaceful satisfaction that the thing is done. Wishing still carries a longing, true assumption carries fulfillment, and SATS helps guarantee this impression. What if negative thoughts or doubts creep in after I've made an assumption? This is where persistence comes in. You do not fight the negative thought, you simply turn your attention away from it and return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You do not dwell on the doubt, you dwell in the end, knowing that your unwavering focus on the desired state will always prevail. Final challenge choice tonight, you face a profound choice. Will you continue to live as a victim of circumstances, reacting to a world you believe is outside your control? Or will you embrace your divine birthright as the operant power, the conscious creator, and begin tonight to sculpt your reality with the magnificent tool of your imagination? There is no middle ground. You are either the slave or the master of your fate. Choose wisely, for your choice dictates your destiny. repeat a command. This teaching is not meant to be heard once. It is a roadmap to liberation. Play this again tomorrow. Return to these principles daily until they are ingrained in your very being. Listen, apply, and observe. Your world will transform before your very eyes. You will know beyond all doubt that you are the God of your being. Now that you understand the profound truth of living in the end, it is time to unveil a deeper layer, a secret that explains the very disquiet that stirs within you, that inexplicable emptiness many of you feel despite outward success. This void is not a sign of lacking. It is the most potent, fertile ground within you, screaming for conscious creation. It is the infinite potential of your God self awakening, demanding you claim your birthright. Listen closely, because here's where we turn that 3 a.m. dread into the undeniable roar of your divine power. The divine paradox, your existential void, as the womb of creation. The emptiness you feel, that gnawing sense of, is this all there is not a spiritual malady. No, it is the signature of your infinite being pressing against the confines of a limited assumption. It is the void from which all creation springs forth, the manifest calling to be made manifest through you. Most men, when they feel this void, desperately try to fill it with external pursuits, more money, another relationship, new accolades. They chase a fleeting sense of completion, never realizing the void is already complete. It is pure potential, waiting for your divine command. To understand this is to move from frantic seeking to sovereign stillness. I recall a profound instance with one of my dearest students, a brilliant mind, but a man burdened by an unshakable inner emptiness despite achieving every worldly success. He was a prominent figure, admired by many, yet he confessed to me that he would often wake at 3 a.m. with a cold dread, questioning the very fabric of his reality. He felt, as he put it, a gnawing hollow core. He saw this as a weakness, a flaw. I told him that emptiness, my friend, is not a flaw. It is the echo of God's I am within you, a sign of infinite potential yearning for definition. I instructed him to enter that void, not to flee it. To lie in his bed, feel that sense of profound, inexplicable emptiness, and instead of dreading it, to consciously identify it as the formless substance of God. Then I commanded him to fill it, not with the memory of past successes, but with the vivid feeling of a future yet to be born, a future defined by profound inner peace and purpose, a life where his work genuinely uplifted humanity. He was to assume the feeling of being the man who had found his ultimate purpose, the one who effortlessly commanded meaning and fulfillment. He persisted, transforming his 3 a.m. panic into deliberate imaginative acts. Within weeks, the dread subsided, replaced by an invigorating sense of anticipation. Soon after, he received an unexpected invitation to lead a philanthropic foundation, a role that perfectly aligned with his deepest, previously unexpressed desires to impact the world. The void, once a source of terror, became the fertile ground for his greatest contribution. He finally understood that his greatest moments of doubt were actually moments of profound clarity trying to break through, revealing his innate capacity for limitless creation. Your subconscious mind, that fertile ground I spoke of, operates on divine law. It does not perceive your inner void as absence, but as a space ready to be filled. When you experience that profound emptiness, and instead of reacting with fear, you consciously impress upon it the feeling of a desired state, you are giving the subconscious the most direct and potent instruction. You are saying, here is the canvas, paint this. The slowing of brainwave activity into the alpha and theta states, particularly in SATS, makes this impression undeniable. This void is the unstructured substance of reality, waiting for the structure you impose through your feeling and assumption. It is the very material from which God creates. To dismiss it as mere anxiety is to overlook the raw creative power within you. Most men are conditioned to avoid discomfort, to numb any sense of internal emptiness with distractions. They chase external validation, material possessions, or fleeting pleasures, believing that these will somehow plug the hole in their soul. They spend their entire lives trying to fill a void that is not meant to be filled externally, but to be defined internally. This is why they remain perpetually unfulfilled, always seeking, never truly finding. Here's the brutal truth most teachers won't tell you. The answer to "is this all there is" is no, not if you claim your power. But the man who understands the divine paradox welcomes the void. He recognizes it as his creative potential, not his limitation. He knows that in that stillness, in that unformed space, lies the power to command anything into being. He enters the void, not with fear, but with the quiet, confident intention of a divine architect, imprinting his desired reality upon the very essence of existence. He doesn't try to fill the void, he becomes the definition of what fills it. I am the fertile void from which all desired reality springs forth. My inner emptiness is the boundless power of my God self, ready to create. Repeat this silently 10 times. The next time that familiar feeling of existential disquiet arises, feel it transform into a sense of infinite possibility, the mirror of reality. Decoding the universe's whispers now. What about those strange coincidences, those synchronicities, those moments when reality seems to shimmer around you, leaving you wondering if you're losing your mind? These are not random acts of fate, nor are they external predictions from some distant deity. No, every external sign or coincidence you encounter is a direct, undeniable mirror of an internal shift you have made or are in the process of making. It is the universe speaking the forbidden language of your inner turmoil, translating your subconscious assumptions into tangible, external clues. These are not whispers to you from outside. They are echoes from you, demanding conscious interpretation. Let me tell you of a student, an astute businessman, who came to me utterly bewildered. He had been experiencing a series of uncanny, bad luck coincidences. Missed flights, sudden financial setbacks, unexpected conflicts with business partners. Each event seemed unrelated, yet they created a suffocating sense of being targeted by an unseen force. He felt his reality was off. He was convinced he was cursed. I explained to him, your external world is a perfect mirror, reflecting the truth of your inner state. These signs are not curses, but synchronized externalizations of your own unrecognized assumptions. I challenged him to stop reacting to the coincidences and instead to look within. What inner state, what deeply held belief could be manifesting such discord? He began to examine his deepest fears, his hidden assumptions about lack and conflict, which he had suppressed under a veneer of outward confidence. He practiced SATs, not just for a specific desire, but to impress upon his subconscious the feeling of inner harmony, effortless abundance, and perfect alignment. He began to revise his perception of these bad luck events, seeing them as opportunities for internal correction. As he consciously shifted his internal narrative, the external coincidences began to change. Missed flights turned into opportunities to meet key contacts. Financial setbacks led to discovering more lucrative avenues. Conflicts transformed into deeper, more respectful partnerships. He finally understood that these signs were not external dictates, but rather direct reflections of his own internal shifts, demanding he take responsibility for his conscious state. Stop, hear these words carefully. These aren't random events. Your subconscious mind is constantly seeking to externalize your dominant internal state. When you impress a new assumption, or when an old one begins to surface for deconstruction, the subconscious immediately begins to organize the outer world to reflect this. These external signs are simply the universe's way of showing you what is being forged within. They are the breadcrumbs, the divine feedback, indicating whether your inner assumption is truly taking root, or if old patterns are still holding sway. They are not to be feared or worshipped, but to be interpreted. The man who masters this interpretation gains an unparalleled advantage, transforming confusion into clarity and chaos into conscious guidance. Most men, when faced with these strange coincidences, either dismiss them as meaningless chance, or worse, fall into superstition, believing in external omens or a controlling fate. They seek external answers, consult psychics, or endlessly search for external validation that they are on the right path. They are putting their power outside themselves, forever waiting for a sign to tell them what to do, rather than realizing the sign is merely a reflection of what they are already doing internally. But the master, the awakened man, interprets these signs as direct feedback from his own subconscious, a profound dialogue between his inner and outer worlds. He understands that if he sees a negative sign, it is an invitation to examine and revise an unhelpful internal assumption. Material wealth diminished his internal reality. He maintained his imaginative vision, continuing to create, to illustrate, to write, against all odds, simply because he knew it was the real work. I recall a student who came to me, distraught over a failing business. He had invested all his savings, and it was on the brink of collapse. His senses screamed failure. I told him, "Your senses lie. Your imagination tells the truth." I instructed him to ignore the physical ledger, the angry creditors, and instead, in his imagination, to see his business thriving. I told him to walk through his store and see it bustling with customers, hear the ringing of the cash register, feel the joy of satisfied clients. He was to do this daily, vividly, until it felt real. He confessed he felt foolish, almost like a madman, doing this while his world crumbled around him. He persisted, not because he believed me entirely at first, but out of sheer desperation. Within weeks, a competitor, who was previously unaware of his plight, approached him with an unexpected offer to buy a specific, highly successful product line from him at an extremely favorable price. This injection of capital not only saved his business, but gave it the boost it needed to re-strategize and eventually flourish. He later admitted that the imaginative acts he performed were so vivid that when the offer came, it felt less like a surprise and more like an inevitable outcome. He had already lived through the success in his imagination. Subconscious programming, your imagination, is the organ of creation. It is the spiritual laboratory where ideas are forged into forms. Every single object, every invention, every relationship, every circumstance in your world first existed as an image, a thought, an idea in someone's imagination. Your physical brain is merely the translator, the receiver, the conductor for the higher frequencies of your imaginative power. When you impress an image upon your imagination with feeling, you are directly instructing the universal subconscious, which has no choice but to manifest that image in your physical world. It's not about forcing anything. It's about seeing it, feeling it, and allowing the universe to respond. This is why wishing without imagination is futile. It is the vivid, sensory experience within the mind that activates the creative mechanism. Contrast trap, most men allow their imagination to be hijacked by their fears and their past. They vividly imagine all the things that could go wrong, replaying past failures, rehearsing future anxieties. They see lack, they imagine illness, they anticipate rejection, and then they wonder why their lives are filled with these very experiences. They unwittingly use the most potent power in the universe against themselves. They believe that what they see with their physical eyes is the limit of reality. But the man who understands imagination as the true reality knows that his present circumstances are merely the residue of past imaginative acts, conscious or unconscious. He consciously directs his imaginative faculty, choosing to construct scenes of success, health, and fulfillment. He knows that to imagine is to create, and therefore he never allows his mind to dwell on negativity. He molds his inner world with the precision of a sculptor, knowing that the outer world will inevitably conform to its image. He dares to imagine the impossible, knowing that for imagination, nothing is impossible. What if I told you that the key to unlocking consistent manifestation isn't about working harder, but about feeling differently? In the next few minutes, I'll reveal why your current feelings might be sabotaging your deepest desires. This affirmation is a direct command to your subconscious, rooting out old beliefs of limitation and installing the truth of your divine creative power. When you speak it aloud, you are not merely saying words. You are programming the very core of your being. Say this with me now, with all the conviction you can muster, feeling the truth resonate within your bones. I command my imagination to create my perfect reality now. I assume the feeling of my wish fulfilled, and my world must conform. Repeat this command every morning upon waking and every night before sleep. Feel the power in your words, knowing that your imagination is God in action. Feeling is the secret, I cannot emphasize this enough. It is not enough to merely think about your desire or to visualize it intellectually. You must feel it. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the very language of the soul, the only medium through which your assumption can be impressed upon the subconscious and made manifest. A thought without feeling is like a seed without soil. It cannot take root and grow. The emotional conviction, the inner sensation of already having, is what breathes life into your imaginative act. Story-proof stack. Let me share the story of my brother, Victor. He lived in Florida, and for many years his business was struggling. He worked tirelessly, but success seemed to elude him. He came to me, full of worry and frustration. I told him about the power of feeling. I didn't tell him to just imagine. I told him to feel the joy of success, the relief of prosperity, the satisfaction of a thriving business. I instructed him to lie in bed each night, and rather than worrying about the bills, to instead feel what it would be like if his business were booming, if he had more money than he knew what to do with, if his clients were abundant and delighted. I told him to get into the feeling of being financially secure, of being a successful businessman. He found it difficult at first because his present circumstances were so contrary, but he persisted. Every night he would focus on inducing that feeling, the lightness, the freedom, the quiet confidence that comes with having achieved his goals. He would walk through his day carrying that inner feeling, even when the external facts were bleak. He would ask himself, how would I feel if this were already true? And then he would simply adopt that feeling. Within a few short months, his business began to turn around in ways he could not have predicted. A new opportunity arose, seemingly out of nowhere, that allowed him to secure a lucrative contract. His sales increased exponentially, and his financial troubles began to melt away. He later told me that it wasn't the visualization itself, but the feeling that accompanied it that made all the difference. He said, "Neville, when I finally felt the relief and the joy, I knew it was done." The outside just caught up. His persistence in the feeling of success ultimately manifested it. This demonstrates that it's not the intensity of the picture, but the depth of the feeling that counts. Subconscious programming, your subconscious mind, does not understand words or logical arguments. It understands vibrations, it understands emotion. Feeling is the vibration of your soul. When you align your feeling with your desired state, you are sending an unmistakable signal to the creative intelligence within you. This is the mechanism that activates the law of attraction, or rather, the law of assumption. It's not about trying to attract something from the outside. It's about becoming the state, embodying the feeling, and therefore causing that reality to unfold around you. The universe doesn't respond to your desperate pleas. It responds to your settled conviction, the quiet knowing that comes from feeling your wish fulfilled. This is how you impress your desire upon the infinite. It is how you truly know if your assumption has taken root. You will feel a sense of relief, a peaceful certainty, an inner joy that the thing is done. This also answers the open loop. How do I know if my assumption is truly impressed upon the subconscious, or if I'm just wishing? When you feel the wish fulfilled, you know it's impressed. Wishing always carries a tinge of longing or doubt. Feeling the fulfillment carries satisfaction. Contrast trap. Most men chase after things, hoping that acquiring them will bring them the feeling they desire. They say, if only I had more money, I would feel secure. Or if only I found love, I would feel complete. They are putting the cart before the horse, always waiting for external circumstances to dictate their internal state. This is a perpetual trap, for the external world is always chasing your inner state, never leading it. They are in a constant state of wanting, which only perpetuates more wanting. But the man who understands that feeling is the secret reverses this process. He knows that the feeling precedes the manifestation. He asks himself, how would I feel if I already had what I desire? And then he generates that feeling within himself, here and now, regardless of his current circumstances. He feels secure before the money arrives. He feels loved before the relationship appears. He embodies the feeling of the wish fulfilled, knowing that the external reality must, by immutable law, conform to his inner state. This is not self-deception, it is conscious creation. You might be thinking, but Neville, how do I generate that feeling when everything around me screams the opposite? The answer lies in mastering a specific technique that bypasses resistance and speaks directly to the subconscious. I'll show you exactly how in a moment. This declaration is an assertion of your divine identity, a powerful statement that bypasses doubt and declares the truth of your being. Speak it with confidence, knowing that you are affirming the very nature of God within you. Say this aloud with me now. I am the feeling of my wish fulfilled. My inner state is the blueprint of my outer world. I radiate abundance, love, and perfect health. Let these words sink into your heart. Repeat them throughout your day, especially when doubt creeps in, reminding yourself of your true creative power. The state akin to sleep, or SATS, is the most potent and direct method for impressing your desired state upon the subconscious mind. It is in this drowsy, receptive state, just before you fully drift off to sleep or just as you awaken, that the conscious mind's resistance is minimized and the subconscious is most amenable to suggestion. In this state, your imagination is unbound, and the feelings you generate resonate directly with the creative source within you. It is the portal, the gateway to the deeper levels of yourself where reality is formed. Story-proof stack. I discovered the profound efficacy of SATS early in my journey, and it became a cornerstone of my teachings. One of my most vivid personal experiences with SATS involved a time when I was desperate for a specific teaching position that seemed completely out of reach. I had applied, but the odds were stacked against me as I lacked the traditional academic credentials. Every waking moment, my mind would fret, calculating the slim chances. I knew I needed to silence this conscious resistance. So each night, as I lay in my bed, I would intentionally bring myself into that drowsy, languid state where the body is heavy but the mind is still aware. I would then imagine a single, brief scene. Receiving the letter of acceptance, holding it in my hands, and feeling an overwhelming sense of relief and quiet joy. I didn't see myself teaching or living a new life. I simply focused on that one moment, the letter, the feeling. I repeated this scene over and over, feeling the reality of it until I drifted off to sleep, carrying that feeling into my subconscious. I did this faithfully, night after night. After about 2 weeks, I received a phone call, not a letter, from the institution. They offered me the position, stating that my unique perspective and experience were exactly what they needed, despite my unconventional background. The circumstances were slightly different from my imaginative scene, but the feeling, the relief, the joy, the certain why of having the position was precisely what I had impressed. The subconscious, in its infinite wisdom, found the most natural and direct path to manifest the feeling of my wish fulfilled. It taught me that while the specific image can be helpful, it is the feeling carried into SATS that is the most powerful catalyst. Subconscious programming. In the SATS, your brainwave activity slows, shifting from beta waking consciousness to alpha and theta relaxed, meditative, or drowsy states. In these lower frequency states, the critical faculty of the conscious mind, which often analyzes, doubts, and judges, becomes subdued. This allows direct access to the subconscious, which is entirely impressionable. When you assume a state and impress a feeling in SATS, it bypasses conscious censorship and is absorbed directly by the subconscious as an undeniable truth. It's like planting a seed in perfectly prepared, nutrient-rich soil, ensuring its growth. Your subconscious then goes to work, orchestrating events and circumstances in the waking world to bring about the external equivalent of what you impressed internally. This is the scientific and spiritual mechanism behind conscious creation. It is not magic, it is law. Contrast trap. Most men try to force their will upon the world during their waking hours, battling against circumstances, pushing against resistance, trying to make things happen through sheer effort. They engage in affirmations with a mind full of doubt, or visualize while fully alert, allowing their critical judgment to negate the impression. They waste precious energy fighting a battle that can only be won within. They fail to understand that their greatest power lies not in active striving, but in receptive assumption. But the man who understands SATS utilizes this potent window of opportunity. He knows that the most profound work is done not through struggle, but through relaxation and imaginative immersion. He consciously cultivates this drowsy state, not to escape reality, but to redefine it. He plants his desires as seeds in the fertile ground of his subconscious, allowing them to gestate and grow without conscious interference. He knows that what is impressed in SATS will inevitably express in his waking world, making the path of least resistance the path of greatest power. This is how he ensures his assumption is truly impressed, addressing the open loop. How do I know if my assumption is truly impressed upon the subconscious or if I'm just wishing? When it's done in SATS with feeling, it is impressed. Have you ever wondered if it's truly possible to change past events or just your perception of them? The next principle will shatter your understanding of time and reveal a power that can literally rewrite your history. Revision is perhaps the most radical and liberating principle I teach. It is the act of mentally rewriting an event from your past, changing it from what it was to what it should have been. This is not about denying what happened, nor is it merely about changing your perception of it. It is about literally changing the fact of it in your subjective world, thereby altering its effects on your present and future. Your past is not fixed, it is fluid, awaiting your creative revision. Story Proof Stack. One of the most powerful examples of revision I witnessed came from a student who had a deeply ingrained belief that he was unlucky in business. This belief stemmed from a particularly devastating business failure years prior, which had left him in considerable debt and filled with self-doubt. He carried the shame and the financial burden of this event like a heavy cloak, and it colored every subsequent endeavor. Every new venture he started seemed to echo the failure of that initial one. I taught him about revision. I told him that his past was not a dead, unchangeable thing, but a living, vibratory record that could be altered. I instructed him to go back to that original, devastating business failure in high S imagination, not to relive the pain, but to rewrite the scene. He was to close his eyes, enter a relaxed state, and imagine the business succeeding gloriously. He was to see the contract signed, the money flowing, the clients celebrating his success. He was to create a new memory, one where that past event was a triumph, not a tragedy. He did this every night for weeks, dwelling on the feeling of that success, the relief of prosperity, the satisfaction of a job well done. Slowly, subtly, his present began to shift. The memory of the past failure, which had once been so vivid and painful, began to recede. It was replaced by a new, more positive memory that felt increasingly real to him. More importantly, his current business ventures, which had been stagnant, suddenly started to gain momentum. Old debts were unexpectedly cleared through new opportunities. He found himself attracting more favorable circumstances and partnerships. He said it was as if the curse of that past failure had simply lifted. He realized that by revising the past, he hadn't just changed his memory. He had changed the foundation upon which his present and future were built. This directly addresses the open loop. Is it truly possible to change past events or just our perception of them? With revision, you change the actual impact and thereby the effective reality of the event. Subconscious programming. Your subconscious mind stores all your experiences. It does not differentiate between what actually happened and what you vividly imagine happened. When you revise an event, you are not engaging in self-deception. You are giving your subconscious a new instruction regarding that event. You are literally altering the subjective record. And since your objective world is merely the projection of your subjective world, a revised past means a revised foundation for your present and future. The energy, the implications, the emotional charge of that past event are transformed. This frees you from the chains of old trauma, old failures, and old limitations, allowing you to build anew from a revised, more positive history. It is a profound act of self-forgiveness and self-empowerment. Contrast trap. Most men are prisoners of their past. They constantly rehearse their misfortunes, their mistakes, their traumas, believing that these events are indelible scars that define who they are and what they can achieve. They drag the weight of their history into every new day, wondering why their efforts to change are always met with echoes of yesterday. They believe their past determines their future. This is a belief challenge I constantly address. My past defines my future is a lie. But the man who understands revision knows that his past is not a prison sentence, but a malleable narrative. He consciously chooses to rewrite any undesirable event, transforming it into a triumph, a lesson, or a blessing. He frees himself from the bondage of regret and recrimination. He knows that by altering the internal record of the past, he fundamentally changes its causal effect on his present. He steps into each new moment unburdened, creating a future that is not a repetition of what was, but an expansion of what he has imaginatively transformed. This is how you reclaim your power and declare, "My past does not define my future, my imagination defines my future." Think for a moment, if you could truly rewrite any moment of your past, what would you change? The implications are staggering, are they not? Stay with me, because the next principle reveals the ultimate authority you possess in this divine drama. This affirmation empowers you to actively engage in the process of shaping your reality, providing clear direction for your conscious creation. It reinforces your ability to take command. Say this with intent, feeling the truth in every word. My consistent revision of the past creates a magnificent present. My disciplined imagination builds my future. My inner world dictates my outer experience. Use this affirmation whenever you feel the need to rewrite a negative thought or memory, turning it into a catalyst for good. This is the ultimate truth, the most profound realization. You are the operant power. There is no other God. There is no external force or entity dictating your fate. You, your consciousness, your I-ness, is God. It is the creative power that moves all things, manifests all things, and is responsible for all things. When I say you are God, I mean your consciousness is God. It is the only reality. All else is merely its manifestation. To truly grasp this is to shed all notions of luck, fate, or external power. You are the sole cause of everything in your world. Story-proof stack. I recall a woman who came to me, crippled by a sense of victimhood. She believed she was just not lucky, a belief challenge I have heard countless times. Her life was a series of unfortunate events, and she genuinely believed that some cosmic force was against her. She was a kind woman, but utterly convinced she was at the mercy of outside circumstances. I spent weeks explaining to her that she was the operant power, that her very belief in being unlucky was the command she was issuing to the universe. She found it incredibly difficult to accept. "Neville," she would say, "how can I be responsible for this illness, this poverty, this loneliness? I don't want these things." I explained that desire and conscious choice were often overridden by deeply held subconscious assumptions. Her constant affirmation, "I'm just not lucky," was her creative decree. I challenged her to perform a radical experiment. For 1 week, every time she caught herself thinking or saying, "I'm just not lucky," she was to immediately correct it by internally declaring, "I am the operant power. I create my own luck. I am always blessed." And then she was to find something, anything, no matter how small, that she could feel lucky about and give thanks for it. Initially, she found it arduous. Her mind automatically went to negative default, but she persisted with the correction and the gratitude. By the end of the week, a strange thing happened. She started noticing small, lucky occurrences she would have previously dismissed. A parking spot opening up, a kind word from a stranger, finding a lost item. This built her confidence. Over the next month, more significant events unfolded. An unexpected inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew, precisely enough to clear her debts. A new job offer that came to her unsolicited, offering better pay and conditions. Her health began to improve. She eventually came back to me, not just with thanks, but with a profound understanding. She said, "I realized it wasn't about being lucky. It was about being the creator of my experience. I was the one telling myself I wasn't lucky, and the universe was just saying, 'Amen' to my command." This shattered her belief challenge. "I'm just not lucky" is replaced by "I am the operant power." Subconscious programming. This principle delves into the very nature of consciousness. All that you perceive as separate from yourself, people, objects, events, are merely externalized aspects of your own being. They are not independent. They are responses to the decrees of your consciousness. When you desire something, it means the desire already exists within you as a potential. Your job is not to create it, but to assume it into being. You are the potter, and the world is the clay. You are the dramatist, and the world is your stage, populated by actors playing parts you have assigned them, consciously or unconsciously. Every aspect of your reality is a mirror reflecting the state you are occupying. There is no power outside of your own awareness. This is why you must never seek validation or permission from external sources. The authority resides within you always. Contrast trap. Most men attribute their successes to external fortune or their failures to external misfortune. They pray to an external God for intervention, believing that some higher power outside of themselves controls their destiny. They seek solutions from doctors, politicians, gurus, or financial advisors, giving away their inherent power to others. They live in a state of dependency, constantly feeling at the mercy of forces beyond their control. This perpetuates the belief challenge. Manifestation is only for certain people. No, it's for the operant power, which is you. But the man who realizes he is the operant power understands that he is the beginning and the end of all his manifestations. He takes full responsibility for his experiences, not with guilt, but with empowerment. He knows that his conscious awareness, his I am, is the creator of all that he beholds. He does not ask for things, he assumes them into being. He does not pray to a separate God. He is that God, expressing himself through the creative power of imagination and feeling. He knows that all power resides within, and therefore he stands as the unshakable architect of his own universe. If you truly are the operant power, then why do some desires still seem to take so long to manifest? The answer isn't what you think, and it will be revealed in the next principle. Persistence in the assumption is the unwavering commitment to maintaining the feeling of the wish fulfilled, regardless of how contrary your outer world appears. It is the steadfast refusal to waver, to doubt, or to return to the former, undesirable state. Your assumption, once impressed, is a seed. Persistence is the daily watering and nurturing of that seed until it blossoms into physical reality. It is the unwavering inner knowing that what you have assumed is already done, and you simply wait for its inevitable externalization. Story proof stack. I recall a particularly challenging case with a young man who desired a specific sum of money to fund an educational endeavor. He had assumed the feeling of having the money, saw himself writing the check, and felt the immense relief and joy of his dream becoming a reality. However, weeks passed, and not only did the money not appear, but his current financial situation worsened, putting immense pressure on him. He came to me, disheartened, saying, "Neville, it's not working. My circumstances are too difficult to change. I'm just getting further away from my goal." This was a direct manifestation of the belief challenge. My circumstances are too difficult to change. I reminded him of the parable of the persistent widow who bothered the unjust judge until he granted her request, not because he cared, but because of her sheer persistence. I told him, "Your desire is not a casual request, it is a divine decree. Your job is not to wonder how it will come, but to persist in the knowing that it is already done." I instructed him to double down on his daily practice of SATs, and crucially, throughout his waking hours, to consciously return to the feeling of having the money every time doubt or fear crept in. He was to say, "I have the money, it is done," and immediately recall the feeling of relief and satisfaction. He committed to this persistence. He ignored the mounting bills and the discouraging phone calls. Every time his mind tried to pull him back into anxiety, he consciously pulled himself back to the feeling of having the money. He would simply turn his attention to the desired end. After what felt like an eternity to him, about 6 weeks of this unwavering inner commitment, an utterly unexpected opportunity arose. A very distant relative, whom he hadn't seen in years, contacted him out of the blue. This relative had made a successful investment and, feeling generous, decided to offer financial gifts to various family members, including my student. The amount offered was precisely the sum he had assumed, down to the last penny, allowing him to fund his education. He realized that the temporary worsening of his circumstances was simply the shadow playing out before the new light could fully break through, testing his persistence. This also answers the open loop. What if negative thoughts or doubts creep in after I've made an assumption? Persistence is the answer. You return to the assumption. Subconscious programming, the subconscious mind, while receptive, also requires a certain degree of saturation. Just as a single drop of water will not change the course of a river, a fleeting assumption will often not be enough to override years of ingrained negative patterns. Persistence is the act of continuously impressing the new assumption, effectively overwriting the old programming. Each time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you reinforce the new reality, deepening its roots in the subconscious soil. This sustained attention ensures that the assumption becomes dominant, solidifying its place as the primary blueprint for your reality. It is the unwavering faith, the unshakable conviction that ultimately causes the external world to conform. It's not about effort in the physical, but discipline in the mental and emotional. This also answers, why do some desires manifest quickly while others seem to linger for years? It often depends on the depth of the subconscious impression and the persistence in the assumption. Contrast trap. Most men make an assumption once or twice, feel good for a moment, and then when their outer world doesn't immediately reflect it, they give up. They conclude that the method doesn't work or that they are somehow unworthy. They allow doubts, fears, and the evidence of their senses to pull them back into the old, unwanted state. They confuse patience with passivity and persistence with pushing. They lack the inner fortitude to maintain their inner commitment in the face of external opposition, allowing their circumstances to dictate their consciousness. This demonstrates the belief challenge. It takes too much effort time to manifest big things. It takes persistence, not effort, and the time is simply the time it takes for your inner impression to externalize. But the man who understands persistence knows that the journey from assumption to manifestation is not always linear. He anticipates tests and challenges to his faith, seeing them not as obstacles, but as opportunities to strengthen his resolve. He continuously returns to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, knowing that every act of persistence deepens the impression and hastens the manifestation. He is like the farmer who plants the seed and then patiently, consistently, tends to it, knowing that harvest is inevitable. He lives from the end, not for the end, maintaining the inner state until the outer world catches up. You've learned that you are the operant power and persistence is key, but what does it truly mean to live as if your desire is already a fact, right now? The final principle reveals the ultimate secret to unlocking consistent, effortless creation. This affirmation is a powerful command to your being, solidifying your resolve and declaring your mastery over your inner states. It is a direct statement of your commitment to conscious creation. Say this with absolute conviction, knowing you are sealing your fate. I persistently assume my wish fulfilled. I never waver from the feeling of the end. My inner conviction manifests my outer reality with divine timing. Repeat this whenever you feel your resolve weakening. Let it be your anchor in the storm of external appearances. Living in the end is the master key to consistent, effortless manifestation. It is not merely visualizing or affirming, it is occupying the state of already having your desire. It is living from the premise that your wish is fulfilled, that your prayer is answered, that your goal is achieved right now. When you live in the end, your actions, your thoughts, your feelings, and your entire outlook align with that assumed reality. You are no longer striving for it, you are embodying